lots of stuff.
Okay.
You're interrupting our conversation.
I'm gonna call, this is Jasmine. Oh boy, it's doing this thing. Hold on a second.
We need to mute something.
Is it not muted?
It's muted, but it's doing the.
You have to turn down your volume on that computer. The microphone's picking up your computer.
Let's see, is this better? Okay, great. My name is Jasmine Vasavita. I'm Commission President. We're calling this work session of the Port of Olympia to order. It's Monday, July 20th. And we have 4 commissioners present in the room, and Commissioner Montano is joining us as remotely in this meeting. A quick point of personal privilege before we go into this work session. I'm really glad to see a longtime concerned citizen of the Port of Olympia has rejoined us today as a web attendee. We'll start with this agenda. Do I have a motion to approve?
To approve?
Commissioner Toompas has motion to approve. Do I have a second? And Commissioner Hanson has seconded. Any discussion? All right. Well, we have an agenda. All in favor? Aye. And 5 people have supported this agenda, and so we're ready to move forward. And we're going to be doing some updates on the budgets and preparing ourselves to actually, as we round out the summer, to be starting our budget process for next year. With that, I guess, Alex, you're gonna lead us through.
Yeah, and this is primarily to give the commissioners just familiarity with our budgets for our business units. And so we're going to be talking about what was budgeted for 2026, what the actual numbers are for the first 6 months, and what the different variances are all about. And we have we have one unexpected absence, I guess, and one expected absence. So we've got Warren covering both Mike Reed's presentation on real estate. Mike is on vacation this week, and that was the expected absence. And then Warren will also be covering the airport, as Chris Paolini has forwarded to all of you commissioners, had a new opportunity that came up pretty darn quickly that he's taken advantage of. And so he has already flown the coop and has moved on to that. So Warren covering airport as well. The order we'd like to go in is real estate first, then the marine terminal, then the marina, and then last but not least, the airport. And then we'll go on to the capital budget and our progress towards capital projects this year. And then we'll look at our 5- and 10-year capital plans, investment plans.
All right. Well, Warren, will you take us?
I will. Good afternoon, Commissioners. Warren Hendrickson, Director of Operations. I will do my best to challenge Mike Reed's eloquence as Director of Community and Economic Development in his presentation today. We will be talking about consolidated properties, and we'll also be talking about, as a whole, through all the business units, we want to tee up and ensure that we're providing you the proper understanding that you seek from us with regard to budget performance and overall. And perhaps this may also tee up some additional things that, with our pending retreat coming up in August, we could also learn some additional things that we could tee up for discussion along those ways between now and as well, based upon what we share with you today. So with that in mind, I'll go forward. The short story is Consolidated Properties, the real estate division. We are on track for our 2026 budget. And I will provide you a little bit of background on all of the port real estate to foster your understanding. So first and foremost, here's our portfolio. It's fairly extensive. When you see in Port Peninsula, we have 138 acres, in Tumwater, 1,395 acres. So you can see the vast difference in terms of the level of real estate and property holdings that we have. Of the acreage in Tumwater, 550 acres is devoted to the Newmarket Industrial Campus. The team members are Mike Reed, Director of Community and Economic Development. Jesse Bensley is our property manager. Britt Hogland is our lease administrator, and I serve on the team as Director of Operations and also represent the airport and lease background. The services provided are listed there, but they provide those services not just to the consolidated properties within the real estate Port Peninsula, but to the entire portfolio. So this team deals with all the leases and all the services provided across all the properties that the port holds. Some of the examples: the real estate document creation involves term sheets to accounting, the leases, the amendments, the extensions, the assignments from one owner to the next, the notices of lease changes and also parking and plaza agreements. Property management includes not specifically the maintenance itself, that's not Jesse's role, but the coordination of the maintenance details that need to be attended to, the information that comes back to us from our tenants, as well as overseeing the consultants that provide our landscaping and our contracted services to the properties. They also include inspections, coordinating with our environmental department for stormwater inspections, as well as fire extinguisher inspections from the common to the mundane to the more important in compliance with state and local jurisdictional requirements. We also take care of vacant property concerns. At times, we have found that some untended property can lead to unhoused population. And so we deal with our sister public agencies to deal with that, to ensure that our properties remain safe and secure and protected. We also deal with parking and compliance issues to ensure that our properties are held to the same standard as our city partners. Under the lease administration area, that's primarily Britt's area. She focuses on contract management, the compliance with the contract in terms of the terms of the leases being adjusted, the rental increases per the lease terms, any delinquencies that may occur, and rare are they. Just a few exceptions to that. For the most part, we find that we have a very viable tenant group all the way across the board. Also, we deal with insurance and then any security or deposits that need to be taken into account, as well as the payment and the applicability of leasehold excise tax. Our customer care and retention across the board, tenant engagement, working closely with our communications and marketing department, jurisdictional liaison, and being an advocate for our tenants to ensure that their needs are met, and we advocate for them on behalf of the city whenever necessary with the partner agencies. And lastly, on the business development side, we look at what the new development inquiries might be. We often get cold calls from people looking for opportunities to invest or locations for a particular need that they have in mind, whether or not there's any capability that the port would have to offer for them. We also deal with requests for proposals and solicitations of interest, the expansions in short-term agreements. The short-term agreements can run the gamut from, for example, temporary use of port property, such as the circus or the FIFA fan zone. Examples can also include the long-term lease through port property of the farmer's market, for example, or parking agreements that may take place. What's not shown here is on the slide are the two types of revenue that we can generate from these agreements. And revenue can either be a flat rate, which is per square foot based upon the location and the length and term of the lease and the use of the property. It also could be a percentage of sales agreement. An example for that would be the Walker John property, where there's a percentage of the actual rent that they received is actually then returned back to the port on a percentage basis, or in some cases, a combination of the two. So each one is structured uniquely based upon the end need and what best serves the individual proprietor and the agreement with. All real estate agreements longer than 1 year require commission approval. An example of a lease that would not meet that requirement is just recently we executed a very short-term 60-day lease with Department of Natural Resources to establish the West Coast firefighting base of operations on the old terminal ramp. In fact, tomorrow they are bringing in the fire retardant, so they will have all the infrastructure ready. I just spoke with DNR this morning. There are no live fires in Western Washington at this point in time, but should anything occur, they will be immediately prepared to go ahead and supply those firefighting aircraft from Olympia Regional Airport. Those longer leases, though, are shown as follows. There are 83 ground leases. An example of those are right downtown here is we have Anthony's Homeport, Cardinal Glass is out at the airport, our Tumwater hotels. Those are all long-term ground leases. The terms will vary depending upon the location that the property exists and what either the Federal Aviation Administration requires or state law provides in the RCWs. So for normally in Olympia, all leases can be up to 80 years long. Now that may not necessarily be 80 years in one fell swoop. It could be, say, 40 years with two 20-year options as an example. In Tumwater, because all the airport out there was originally acquired through the federal government's assistance in World War II, those properties come under a slightly different set of requirements. And industrial lease would be no longer than 75 years, but inside the fence, the aeronautical use area is no longer than 50 years. Again, it could be any combination of years of initial lease plus options, but those would be the maximums depending upon where you're located. We have 11 space leases across the entire port portfolio. Scribbles and Giggles is a daycare, childcare center and development center out in the Clean Water Center. And we have our gas station, for example, is owned by the port right over here on Plum Avenue. We have 11 license agreements. These are typically temporary use on a short-term basis. The end result is even if it's a long-term standing agreement, it still will be a temporary use envisioned. So for example, the gravel parking lot that we commonly called, it's known as parcel J, but it's also known informally as the Shark Fin. It's actually under a short-term lease to the Hands-On Children Museum for overflow parking. The museum parking also is included in that. The Shoestring Circus, our South Sound Block Party are all examples of license agreements. The temporary use of port property for a particular purpose. Now, this is where it gets a little bit interesting in terms of the budget nomenclature and how it's laid out and understanding a little bit more about the details in the budget. We often think of real estate as the fourth business unit. The three primary other ones are, of course, the airport, the marine terminal, and Swantown plus Boatworks. As the fourth business unit, the real estate revenue and expenses are spread over multiple budgets. So when you go into the beginning of our annual budget, one of the first sections you reach is consolidated airport properties. Well, that is actually composed of three different groups. The airport itself, which is Department Code 010, the New Market Industrial Campus, which is Department Code 012, and Clean Water Center 014. New Market and Clean Water Center are both real estate property holdings by the port, but they are part of the consolidated airport budget because of the nature of how the land was acquired and the federal requirements for that revenue support of the airport. The end result is when you look at consolidated properties for real estate, it's not the same. Consolidated properties are just those that aren't otherwise accounted for by the other businesses. So that's different. And when you look at that, you can see that Tumwater includes three different groups: airport, New Market, and Clean Water Center. Then you have the marine terminal, and it has land leases out there with its tenants. Swantown Marina has its land leases. For example, the KGY Tower, the radio tower out there in Cascade Pole, that is actually on Swantown property. The revenue generated from that lease goes to Swantown, not to real estate. And then the Boatworks, its license agreement for the parking, that parcel actually is the Boatworks parcel, and that its revenue goes to Boatworks. The end result is when you get down to consolidated properties, it's not all the above. It's only the overhead, the Market District, the North Point District, and East Bay District are the only ones that fall within consolidated properties. So there might be an attempt to look at consolidated properties as being all of the port's real estate holdings. There is no single source location in the budget where you can say, I want to see all the real estate holdings on one page. So that's something to be aware of. In fact, if you wanted to go into the budget, in the fine print on the right-hand side, those are all the places in the budget you would have to look for to see where real estate falls into the port.
Question.
Sure.
Does our budgeting software allow for us to create reports where we could create, where a report could be created that does that? It does create one report that is all of.
It can. It's a little complex right now. I will defer to Brent if I get this wrong, but we're in the process of updating and upgrading our systems now to Business Central, which will be a far more advanced capability within our Dynamics financial software. And as a result, then we'll be able to customize and design our reports to do exactly that. Right? Did I get that correct?
Yeah, I think that's pretty close. I mean, it's also
Please join us at the table if you're going to speak.
on over
Sorry,
here.
put you on the spot.
Brent Barnes, Director of Enterprise Services. Yeah, I think that summarizes it fairly well. I mean, when we get into the new system, we have to look at alignment of our general ledger codes. And so each of the rental areas, whether it be land rent or space rent or a license agreement, have different general ledger codes. And so seeing how those align across all those business units, but we should be able to do that. I'd say the caveat there is you probably still want to separate out airport from everything else.
I was just gonna build on that because I think it was important to me when I came in as a commissioner to make sure we were separating out the airport properties because they're restricted in such a way that really they are to be operated for the benefit of the airport. And I'd like us to get to a point where we could look at what's labeled as consolidated properties and understand kind of how we are realizing value from those leases, how we are on behalf of the public kind of benefiting from the appreciation as the land value increases. How we, instead of that being a private benefit, it's one that stays in public ownership. And with that, the transition to a question is, I'll just flag this to you, Alex, and Warren, you're welcome to answer it, or we can just punt it and leave it for when Mike comes back. But I worked with some citizens when I was coming into office to look at our whole portfolio of lands. And the question was, why, if we have this many acres within the consolidated properties, why are the earnings not higher? And so I think at some point, I'd love us to be able to look at, especially those, and sort of how many acres we have in service to leases and what we're sort of earning as the average amount per parcel. And it could be that although we have escalators in our leases, we've discussed this before, that we have not yet, the escalators haven't kept pace with sort of land appreciation to a point where we're fully realizing the current value of our lands. And as these leases come up for being refreshed, we can anticipate significant new income based on market rate. Or it could be that historically also we set leases below market rate because the policy at the time was to really incentivize development. And now we have a clear policy. We want market rate leases unless it's under our nonprofit policy or special things. So I think there's a deeper look I would like us to have here as part of our budget process. And I just want to flag that to you, Alex. Is there anything you want to say about the importance of public ownership of land?
Nothing comes to mind right now, Commissioner, but I hear your question and I think that's a great thing to look at, and we can look at our real estate policies as well if the commission wants to make a sort of formal statement for us.
I would just add on to that benefit created from our real estate portfolio extends beyond financial. And I think that's why it's important to have public ownership. And is that we can look at the benefits created beyond just dollars and cents.
One of the things, to answer your direct question, I will be able to give you a specific example to your question when we get to the airport presentation later. So I can show you exactly how that value was translating, into that when we get there. The other thing that we have taken a look at, this real estate team, now that we've got the full real estate team developed, what we've been taking a look at is, to some extent, our revenue has been limited because of the provisions made by long ago executed leases. And what we are now doing is we're incorporating into new leases going forward a mechanism by which we can then ratchet up those rates to match actual current conditions. Some of these leases were established 25, 30 years ago without a sufficient ratchet,
Escalator.
without the escalation clause. And we find that one lease, for example, out at Newmarket was still on the books at 6 cents per square foot.
The more transparent we can be about this, the better, because I'd like to be able to show, yes, there's some valid criticism of decades ago,
Yes,
but this Newport is really moving in the direction that people are hoping.
that is correct. And we want to be able to provide and incorporate those kinds of provisions into our leases going forward, so we don't find circumstance again. At the time those leases were executed, those were good deals. It was all done with good intent. But we're finding now that as time has marched on, that there are additional things that we can do to go ahead and provide for those. Excellent point. I'm glad you raised it. Going forward. So here is a pie chart. It gets a little busy. And again, the bottom of the slide shows where all the department provisions are made, the number of agreements, and where we are. But I want to call attention to the two pie charts. In particular, on the left one, we see the total number of leases and agreements. And on the right chart is in similar color fashion to mirror what's on the left, is the amount of revenue generated from those leases and agreements. And when you look at the relative size of the colors, most of them, other than in the green, stand out, pretty matched up. The number of agreements and the percentage of revenue is pretty close. But when you look at the green, the darkest green is clean water, and you can see that pie shape is about even. But then when you look at the Newmarket and airport, you look at the fewer number of leases in Newmarket compared to the airport, and look at the revenue generated from Newmarket compared to airport. I mean, that's one of the first things that jumped out at me for that. And the reason, and the question might be is, why can there be so few leases generating so much more revenue at Newmarket than that is at the airport?
We really compare number of leases?
I know, I'm curious.
Yes, number of leases.
That's a weird metric.
It's amazing it even
That's true.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's based upon the slide that Mike had put together earlier, with showing the total number of leases. And then we're also now showing the revenue generated per the number of leases.
It's because we own buildings.
That's correct. That's correct. And so in Newmarket, you have large parcels generating significant dollars, where on the airport, you have individual hangars, individual building. Each one of those is generating revenue, but you have a larger number of agreements than you do have the revenue generated from each of those individual hangars or plane ports or tie downs. So that's the reason for that. But ultimately, it just shows the value of the bigger parcels are going to generate your greatest income. And when you look at the total numbers, a couple of things stand out. Total revenue across all of the business units, all the properties, regardless of where they're located within the budget, is just shy of $5 million per year. Of those, the two biggest chunks are the top two lines. The first line is the airport. That is the inside the airport fence. That's the aeronautical fence of just shy of $1 million. And just shy of $2 million is clean water. What the slide doesn't show is what we're looking to advance forward going down the road. That top line of 929,000, once Swire's lease is active and they become on the property, that number turns into $2.9 million. The Swire lease will triple the airport revenue once it's executed. On the Tumwater 012, the Newmarket Industrial Campus, once Panattoni fully develops its 196 acres under the optional lease agreement, that 1.9 figure will turn into close to 5.9. At least almost $6 million per year. So once those properties begin to develop down the road, that bottom line of 4.7 million will be close to $10.7 million. And that's just a few years away. So significant increments in revenue is in the future.
Yeah, get this.
Absolutely.
And then also, I think it was added on the meeting packet for the public,
Certainly.
with people taking pictures and stuff.
Sure. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Happy to do that. Now, let's take a look at the consolidated properties again, because that's what's left after all the other business units and their property holdings. So in 060, when you look at the budget, it's actually just the properties overhead. There's no revenue associated with that. That is your real estate expenses for staff, for your training. If we have appraisals of property, any cost assumptions or analysis that need to be made, any third-party agreements, professional expenses, that would be in 060.
And just properties overhead for those properties or for our whole portfolio of real estate?
For overall. But a portion, as you will see when I get to the airport, I will show you how that staff time, because I mentioned before, the staff time is allocated across all portfolios, then their salaries and their benefits are accounted for in those other departments. And I'll show you exactly where that is in the airport presentation shortly. The areas in yellow that you can see there are the three areas that comprise the consolidated properties. So you can see all that Port Peninsula essentially is port property, but only those three areas in yellow are the consolidated properties. At the top is North Point. In the middle is our Market District, and at the bottom is East Bay. And these boundaries that you see there pretty much, well, they do mirror the boundaries that are shown in our comprehensive scheme of harbor improvement. In all of the 060 series, that's North Point, Market District, and East Bay, we have a total of 16 leases. Ground leases are 12. One space lease is one, that's the gas station. We have licenses and options would be 3. The total area of those 3 yellow parcels is 31 acres. The total existing leased area is 12 acres, and the remaining developable acres is 7.45. And you go, wait a second, so that's not, that's, how about those other 12 acres? Where are they? Well, they are your Port Plaza. They are your roads. They are your future port headquarters, the Batdorf and Bronson building. They are the stormwater pond. They are the Billy Frank Jr. Trail. So that's where those other 12 acres are. When you look at the budget, short story is we are performing slightly better than budget. Year-to-date actuals versus year-to-date budget, our revenue is exceeding our total budget for the first 6 months of the year by 74,000. Our operational and maintenance expenses are $7,000 less than program. And the end result is we are $67,000 ahead where we predicted we would be at the 6-month point. 88,000 is our net operating income ahead of budget projections for where we are so far this year. In the market district, we have 17 acres. There are 2 developable sites remaining. One additional site may be required due to overflow parking. That's the one closest to the farmer's market building. And we have a total of 7 leases and 3 licenses.
Could you just go back really quick?
I sure can.
I see the farmer's market. Can you tell us how we refer to those other 4 buildings that are within that district?
So on the lower left corner, the one with the orange roof, that's Anthony's. The one to the north of that is Grant's building, the corporate center. The other one is the corporate market center across the street, which is the one for Batdorf and Bronson Cafe and the other shops and location.
It's Market Center.
Dancing Goats there. And then the fourth one over there on the upper right corner is our future port headquarters.
Oh, that's awesome. When you look at it that way, it's a no-brainer.
Hmm.
The headquarters decision.
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
Right adjacent that road that you see just to the right of our future headquarters is the entrance into the marine terminal. So we're right there on, you know, on the flyway right to all of the business units.
What are the 2 green, the triangular green one and the square green?
Undeveloped.
Those are the undeveloped parcels that remain available for future development. The one, the square shaped one is, we call it Site E. That is right there on the, in between the entrance into the marine terminal and Marine Drive. That's where our large gravel, you know, the removal from the redevelopment of Marine Drive, that's where we store the gravel until either pending use of our Boatworks expansion or development perhaps up on Berth 4. And the other one is a triangular parcel directly across from the new headquarters, which is where you may recall when we had our rail cars that were stored on the siding there before we surplus them and were able to sell them for revenue gain. That's that particular parking lot over there, right across the street from Lot.
For those concerned about continuity of sort of an experience for both residents and visitors who enjoy the waterfront and then make their way to the other side of Percival Landing from the East Bay, that square parcel becomes sort of a part of that continuity of experience. If it can become an attractive sort of public serving parcel, it is a gateway. That's right.
You go way back when, well before my time, maybe when you and Mike were first here, that was the thought process for Site E of being the port headquarters at one time is I put it as an administrative site to say, you know, welcome to the Port of Olympia as a, you know, statement place.
We're gonna build a
Here we are just a block away.
sheriff. Now, I will say that sort of rectangle that's to the south, that's sort of green. That's actually land that's committed for overflow parking for the Rance building. Lot is also interested in acquiring that at some point, so awareness.
And just to underscore something I think we all know now, but those buildings, the Rance building and the building Anthony's, we didn't pay to build the buildings. We have a long-term lease, private sector money developed the buildings. So we get earnings that are lower than if we were the landlord who had taken all the risk of building the business and invested all the capital.
Exactly. And another distinction here between what we're trying to do at Newmarket is the port put in the infrastructure here. So they put in the parking lots, the curbs, gutters, street trees, all that kind of stuff in Newmarket.
For the whole,
Yeah, for this whole, the market
as
district.
part of a comprehensive planned.
Yeah, and that's
parcel.
when the Port Plaza got developed. Yeah, so all of that was done at the same time. And then in Newmarket, though, we are asking the developer to take on all of that. So putting in the curbs, gutters, parking lots.
Huh.
This was all in the period of time between 1995 and 2005 in round number period.
So it was a publicly designed area.
064 is North Point. That's approximately 5.5 acres. On the upper left-hand corner, that's Anthony's Hearthfire Restaurant that they have under lease and that their parking area attached to that facility. And then the balance of it, of the KGY facility, current location, also our current temporary maintenance shop location at what was known as the Holbrook Building, that is now under port control, and the adjacent area immediately to that next to Cascade Port.
And to the immediate right of that, that big parking lot, that serves the marina.
Well, it does. It also serves multiple purposes. It's also a place where those that are using day use, for example, of our boat launch ramp, they can store their trailers up there. It's an open place for the community. It's open during the day. You see huge numbers of people come and enjoy their lunch up there in that environment. But essentially, that is the Cascade Bowl cap. That's also where we have our summer nights at the port, where we have our concert series. The stage is generally set up in the lower bowl, which is the right-hand side of the green area. And then the upper bowl is where all the parking takes place.
Did Swantown own North Point then? And you said that KG
Point is part of the properties division, but Cascade Pole, why it's not shown as green, is because that is part of Swantown. If I went back a couple of slides. Too far. Back to my yellow. That one. You can see the Swantown. If you look at the red bordered areas, you know, you can see the part there on the left-hand side is Marine Terminal. So everything from North Point all the way down to Market District, that's Marine Terminal. But everything to the right side of Marine Drive, all of that is Swantown. So Cascade Pole, all the marina, all the way down to the Boatworks area. It's all considered part of the Swantown budget.
So that's how North Point is separated from. Swantown.
That's right. And because the KGY antenna sits on the Cascade Pole, that's why the revenue from the KGY antenna goes to Swantown.
So KGY is actually still paying rental for the.
They are,
Antenna.
for their antenna.
Do I see correctly that the shark fin property, and I don't know, is that site F or G?
Well, it
It's
depends on
part
where
of
you look.
Swantown as well?
The shark fin is Swantown. Yes,
Okay.
that is correct.
And then
And
directly
both.
south of that, where there's the little upside down L-shaped property, that's a property that we've now sold to the city of Olympia.
is
for the
correct.
Expansion of the,
That's parcel I, but also as it came to the commission was lots 6 and 7
Okay.
that the port sold to the city of Olympia for reuse by the Hands on Children Museum.
Can you go back forward now to the slide you were on?
Sure. We're on North Point.
So this North Point is part of why I, as a commissioner, wasn't wedded to going forward with the waterfront center. Part of it was we didn't have a sustainable revenue plan for it, given the size of the public investment. That was like a $40 million planned building. But partly it was that I see this location, and I just want to put this out there, and I'm hoping we'll get TRPC public input on this. I see this location right next to that multi-use, where we do summer nights at the port, to be a place where we could possibly have an enduring public amenity. That's sort of not a huge amphitheater, one that's the right size for our community, but like a setup stage that doesn't cost all that much because it's already there. That's a different kind of publicly owned infrastructure. And then the part towards Anthony's I see as where KGY building was, there's a chance to both kind of maintain some public park type aspect, and also have a tenant that serves, another sort of tenant that generates revenue. And so I'm hoping that we can move forward soon with that public outreach to see whether that aligns with what we're hearing from individuals in the. Sorry, I know that's not the point of today's. These are good visuals.
No, actually, it was really one of the thoughts. It was a chance really. Mike and I talked as we were preparing for this and Mike says, I mean, there's so much more to tell in this story than just the numbers. I mean, you get to the numbers, you go, yeah, we're $88,000 ahead of budget for the first 6 months. Okay, but wait, there's a bigger story here. And that's why we went in this direction.
I think it's totally relevant. And I've said in the past that one of the reasons I'm excited about the development of Site D and the potential for a hotel to be developed there is that it could potentially provide an ongoing revenue stream that could help maintain some kind of public facility that could be built at that point. I think the pressure to develop that green section of this slide goes away if we can develop Site D and dedicate some resources towards the maintenance of a public. The capital to build something, I think, is easier to come by than the long-term operations and maintenance. And if we can identify a revenue stream that we can dedicate toward the ongoing operations and maintenance of facility, I think it gets a lot easier to have that conversation about building something. So I think it's totally relevant. I think your comments are totally relevant. I think I'm in pretty much in alignment with your vision.
Thank you for picking up what I put down.
And then lastly, we have East Bay. There's approximately 8.5 acres remaining for development, 3 sites total, 4 leases currently exist in there with 3 different tenants. Walker John being one of the largest ones there, as well as our gas station on the corner property.
And Walker John recently let go of its option for the most developable parcel, right?
That is correct.
So kind of indicating that even an entity that is developing and has developed housing here in Olympia, private sector alone is not finding it yet worth investing in that housing there.
That's correct. And
One more time.
there is. And I would share with you 2 ongoing initiatives of the real estate team, just so you know the kind of direction that we're going. One of the things that we're trying to do, and as we discovered really across the board, just as a series of events over a long period of time, is that the lease rate changes have not been consistent. And so as we go forward with the leases that we're negotiating now, we're looking at how we can go ahead and mirror best practices so that each new lease going forward is consistent in terms of the lease rate it's charging now and the triggers by which lease rate reevaluations will take place in the future. The other issue, which will be substantial for our efficiency, is right now, depending upon when a lease comes before the commission, when an opportunity comes before the department, leases can be executed any time of the year. Well, the end result is then the annual review of that lease time is that same time of year. Well, when it comes to budget, when you have 112 leases that you have to go through and project revenues, you have to go, oh, this one's through September, and then it's a new lease rate after that, or this one's through June and this one. So what we're doing now is we're going, okay, here's your lease prorated through the end of the calendar year. On January 1st, your new lease rate begins at X number of dollars for that 12-month calendar period. So give us a few more years and we will have every lease will have a lease rate starting on January 1st. And then the budget calculations are going to be so much simpler.
Warren, who came up with that little
It's just
solution?
the synergy of 4 people sitting in the room
Very
going,
nice.
where are the holes? Where are the inefficiencies? How can we bring some greater sense and smoothness to this whole?
Is that something that is a similar problem for other ports? Do they have that entering into leases anytime?
Oh, absolutely. Yes.
Because Commissioner Unsold is also committed to us winning Port of the Year next year, so you might want to start a list of these things.
This is great process improvement.
Really?
Get him some pom-poms.
Anyhow, happy to entertain any questions that you might have or any additional comments.
Maybe just a comment. How we have our business line and it's set up, Swantown Marina is considered a business line. As we developed site D and potentially more sites, it seems like the actual marina will be a very part of that business line. That it feels a little bit like if we call it Swantown Marina, it's a little deceptive. Majority marina itself, it's not what we're looking at. It's like the least properties nearby. So as just a comment, I think maybe long term, we might need to change that business, change the name of the business line from Swantown Marina to Swantown District or something.
Excellent. Anything else?
I have a quick question about the revenue that is generated by the properties at the marina, going to the marina. Those are not regulations imposed on us by a third party. That is a decision that has been made by previous commissions, and that could be renegotiated amongst the commissioners if at some point we wanted to figure out a different way.
The founding basis for that would be the comprehensive scheme of harbor improvements in terms of how the properties are dedicated to certain areas and how that's done. Any change to the comprehensive scheme of harbor improvements is well within the purview of the commission to go ahead and make that change.
The reason I'm thinking about that is that if there were a public amenity, an amphitheater or something, and it spilled over from one district to another, we'd have to address how do we share revenue and how do we.
Boundary change
solve
easily,
stuff that we could
easily
do.
done.
We currently have that because the trail goes through East Bay, it goes through Swantown, it goes through North Point, and it's just allocated.
Yeah.
It's in different areas. So there's a section that my team takes care of. Well, they take care of all of it. There's a section of it that's my
Your budget.
budget, and then there's a section that's public amenities. So it is accounted for currently.
I have a random question, but I'm very curious about the gas station that the port owns. Is this a good thing for the port to be in the ownership of a gas station? And is there any thoughts of selling?
Well, yes. So over the years, I think we've taken a look at it. It's sort of a unique situation for the port because we own everything, including tanks, the pumps, the building, all of it is leased to an operator. But it, in this little universe of consolidated properties, and smaller universe of East Bay properties, it's a steady stream of income. And, if we were to sell the gas station, we would have the only property I think that would be generating revenue in the East Bay district is the Westman Lodge. So I think that's been something we've been thinking about. But I do think that long-term, there are some liability issues associated with owning a gas station with older tanks and owning the tanks. And so, yeah, it's something we'd love to discuss with the commission.
Did we pay it after it had been developed? Or did we actually, did the port actually do the develop, put in the tanks and pumps and?
Right. Where I wish Mike Reed were here. I think the port at one point tried to buy the whole block and ended up only buying the gas station and the property sort of kitty corner to it. And so there's a property that's owned by Tom's Outboard. We lease the adjacent property to him, and that's where he stores things. Yeah, Warren, what more do you know?
Yeah, a little bit to that. So what happened is, yes, there was a plan. Go ahead and purchase the entire block that you see in the lower right-hand corner, which includes to where Tom's Outboard is, the gas station, the pottery location, Tom's Outboard. And that was the plan, was to go ahead and do that. There was initially a plan too for the city of Olympia to create a roundabout at the intersection of Marine Drive and Plum, which then would have transgressed onto those adjoining properties to make a better entry into the marine terminal area. Quite honestly, what happened is negotiations and sales on properties took place in open public forum when it became obvious that the port was interested in buying these properties. And then when the other properties owners were approached, the price to acquire their property became prohibitive for the port to approach. So it should have been one of those things to have been done all at once, and it was done sequentially. And then as the sequence unfolded, the cost of acquiring those additional properties became unsupportable.
Was some of that because of our open public meetings requirements, because we are a public entity? And if we had been a private business, we would have been able to buy them up much easier.
It's a little supposition on my part, but I would have to say that that's probably, on the mark. And part of the the story that goes and the narrative that.
I'd like to take this chance in our work session to share two things with my commissioners, since I can't do that privately, right? So, one, that on the issue of the gas station and this sort of legacy fossil fuel revenue generating investment, if we were to have the opportunity to divest in a way that's lucrative for the port, I would really love to couple that with an investment into clean energy, or kind of our goals for that. The second thing is on an ecological front, this is where Moxley Creek flows into the bay, and or East Bay, I guess is what you call it. And if my understanding from the research I've done so far, and Craig, you know about this as well, is that this area, there's not much point to trying to open up this area, because feeding from that, there's like a giant, what's it called? Culvert conduit that runs under Plum Street, and neither the county, there's no county, city, tribe, no one is interested in looking at that. But I want to put that out there. We're aware that this is where Moxley Creek's outflow is. And if there were a strong value, I'd like to understand that. But so far, everyone I know who's looked into this deeper has said, with our lands, there's nothing kind of that we could get from that.
We would have to collaborate with the city, but to do like a 200-foot estuary restoration, that would definitely have a improvement on dissolved oxygen in Bay. And it would not require daylighting along the street and that sort of stuff, but just for the last 200 feet before it enters into the bay there.
But
that would require,
that would have significant value.
it would, yes, it would.
And then the main thing is the city's routing plan, right? And that being the beginning of anyway, I would love to have a deeper dive on that, Craig, whether this is something, a POCAC type question, or I just want to make sure that we've done our due diligence on that before we do something further with those properties.
Thank you. I agree.
I would just comment that one thing that comes to mind in terms of the gas station and having that property in public ownership is that we as a commission could make a decision, or future commissions could make a decision to transition that to non-being dual structure. Whereas if we sold it off, there's no longer any public control.
We could, but my understanding is especially the trucks that would be the more likely off-takers for non-emitting fuel, it's not a very good
Flow.
it doesn't have a big turnaround that you need for the.
Yeah. But if we could acquire the rest of the block or something, there'd be a lot of options.
Royal Mart has proven to be an excellent tenant. They did a significant renovation of the property. It's really a first-class facility, and they have been just, very due diligent in terms of the responsibilities to the port.
That's great.
What are what's the length of that lease?
If I recall, I was thinking that you might ask that. Believe it's a 10-year lease with a 10-year option. And the tenant does have the first right of refusal, if the port would offer that for sale.
Probably on the timeline that I was thinking is something 10 years out.
And so the bottom,
The
that
world's like
carve
that.
out from what would seem to, if you drew a straight line across the bottom, what's that carve out property? It's not Tom's Out. Oh, is that
That's where that's the pottery location right there.
okay, how interesting.
So you can see the intent was to go ahead and connect all of those properties all the way across from.
Yeah.
You know, that was the goal. Years ago, I guess.
Well, certain that that culvert is running right under the road. See
That, the road on
the road
east side.
between the Pottery and Tom's Outboard and the green.
That's about right. If you look closely, you can actually see, if you look at East Bay, you can almost kind of see the drainage.
Drainage.
That's it. That is Moxley Creek.
So that is land that we've not developed and this Rando Pottery site.
Well,
Right.
but where the culvert actually is, I think is under the road.
It's under the road.
It's owned
Yeah.
by the city,
Just the-
yeah.
There's a city street there.
It crosses on one of the undeveloped. Just like it.
And that's why it would require putting in a sort of a bridge, and that's what the city is reluctant to commit to because of the.
Yeah, if you go further south from that road, it doesn't go through. It's was that Community Youth Services building or something?
Alex, in our one-on-one, I'd like to talk to you about how to run to ground kind of the ecological value of that tiny piece.
Okay, thank you very much.
I apologize, Commissioner Montano, I've not been checking in with you. Our volume is off here, but do you have any questions on this presentation?
No questions. Thanks for being aware. I'll raise my hand if I have any questions. I just appreciate all the information, Warren, and what you just said about Moxley Creek. I think that's really important that we take into account the ecological consideration of the value there. I made a note to ask Alex as well.
Thank you.
Swim facility.
Now we're gonna hear from our Air Force. Workers? Is that-
We are
Nope.
going to hear from our marine terminal director.
Oh, we're gonna see. I was teasing.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. I'm Afshin Yilmaz, the Marine Terminal Senior Manager, and we are here for the first half financial report for 26.
Strong thumb.
That was it. So it's pretty similar to last year, starting. Before I get into all this, I want to talk about the budget, meeting budget numbers, etc. With the marine terminal, that's not a number we are chasing. How we are strictly on that budget number, because when we do the marine terminal budget, at least for the last few years, what we are doing is just conservative budgeting. What we know, we are going to get, and anything else that happens, and those operations too, let's say we're gonna do 2 paper ships. We kind of conservatively budget for it, and if it comes better than that, then we think of it as a, bonus plus. That helps us limit spending or fantasies about spending a little bit. So this year is similar. The reduction in the log vessels is still there, so Weyerhaeuser is pretty slow. And at the moment, their customers in Japan, they are recovering with their mill, and it's supposed to come into play again, but it's still slow. So next year too, we're not budgeting more than what we've been having so far. We are budgeting for the reduction. They are hopeful about the increase, especially after 27, but this year we still project about 13 vessels. And what you're gonna see with this presentation is a very healthy beating of the budget numbers, but that's based on that 6 months, the first 6 months. So what we had for the first 6 months is, I think they had some contract negotiation coming up, so they brought forward a few vessels. So we had more vessels in the first half with Weyerhaeuser than, let's say, if you just went linear on a 6-month basis. So we are projecting 12, 13 vessels, but we had 8 in the first half. And in the second half, we are gonna have less. That's already told us. So the results, the margins that you are seeing in this first 6 months, we're not gonna see that in the second one, because we're not gonna have as many Weyerhaeuser vessels. Paper pulp is steady, still growing very slowly, because we provided that extra storage, as you know, in Lacey. So we have more space in our warehouse now. But the reason for that was to have the warehouse with a safe number so that when the ships come in, we're not panicking, there's no production issues. For that, it's gonna be a slow increase, but again, the growth that we are hoping will come later, that we are talking about, it's pending on that grant application for the warehouse. These are the port calls. I will not recite the numbers, but you can see the difference. Just look at the total port calls compared with 22, 24 numbers. It's almost halved compared to 22, almost halved. Now, I want to bring something to your attention. When you look at it, the numbers look horrendous, but as you've seen, because of the new business that we are dealing with for the last few years, it didn't necessarily create the financial results that you would expect with such reduction, because we are dealing with better value cargo now. However, it still has certain effects. So the best way I can put it is, if the number of vessels are down, but we are not financially hurting, but it's hurting other partners. I'll give you an example. We got 2 resident tugboats here that's run by a local tugboat company. So I might be okay with vessel reduction because I'm still, let's say, financially okay. Of course, we're not happy with vessel reductions, but it's not hurting us as it would hurt, linearly. We would have been losing millions if it was a different scenario. But it's hurting the tugboat business, because normally they would be dealing and getting paid for 20 to 30 vessels a year. Now they are getting only 13. So they are getting a little bit antsy because their expenses have gone up a lot too.
Option, if this chart showed more than 4.5 years, if it showed 10 years, would we see that 21 and 22 might be an anomaly because of COVID?
22 was an anomaly.
And that 23 and 24 is kind of a reversion to the mean?
Yes.
And,
Yes.
okay.
22 everywhere, all along the coast, because of the container terminal and the rail issues, all the little, so we never look at 22 and like, that's us now, that's what we're gonna do. It's not gonna happen. But a normal year with Weyerhaeuser would be what the numbers exactly, like you said, 23, 24.
And then I'm sorry, I think there's another factor in play here from 24 to 25 with tariffs. It is probably a reduction in that China
Weyerhaeuser
business.
was correct. Correct.
I'm sorry, year to date, it's incomplete numbers, whereas we're comparing it to other full years. Is that correct? 2026 number,
6 months.
we're not comparing at this same time across each of those years. We're comparing full calendar years.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. So 25, the 25 number you're looking at is not the first 6 months numbers, it's the full 25 numbers. 24 is the full 24, 12-month
But
numbers.
this year, it's just the half.
Just half. So what that's gonna be, if nothing else happens towards the end of the year, is gonna be total again, 17, maybe.
Option, does that mean we'll be subsidizing Weyerhaeuser, the marine terminal?
Negative. So this year, this is regarding the leases. So we do definitely lost some earnings with the Weyerhaeuser low ship loss, but with the
They're
warehouse,
not doing as much business, so we're not earning as much from
we're
them.
not earning as much. However, sort of those vessels income are, of course, part of the marine terminal, pocket, but there was a provision in their lease that has never been exercised before because they never went down in numbers that much. So normally, at the beginning of the, whenever it was done back in 2010 or something, they had a provision stating a table of rated SNF, which is the service and facilities charge that we charge to vessels, and they pay a healthy chunk each month. it's not based on the vessel accounts, it's based on just their lease, a fixed amount that gets adjusted every year. Now, that amount, there was a provision that allowed us to increase it very healthy because of their reduced volume to compensate the port for the loss of revenue. So let's say normally they were paying, I don't remember the numbers now, but let's say they're paying $110,000 a month for SNF. Now they're paying $20,000 more. So that's gonna be close to over $200,000 more revenue than they ever paid for SNF in their lease history. That's because their volume went below 75 million board feet. So, and I think this year it's gonna be the same. So they're gonna be paying the increased rate next year. But hopefully they increase after that. And that revenue, extra, call it penalty payment, that kind of, I would say, recovers maybe 3/4 of the vessel revenue, lost vessel revenue.
So it's a mechanism that we negotiated with Weyerhaeuser originally to help us
Correct.
moderate the volatility, potential volatility of shipments.
Correct. Because vessel numbers can always change, but at least that compensates the ports a little bit more from the loss of revenue, if you may. Not necessarily, there's no vessel, there's no say, I mean, there are some expenses that you average out over the year, but that's usually covered by other parts of that lease, let's say sweeping the docks, et cetera, which we were gonna do anyway, part of our stormwater stuff. But if a vessel doesn't come, I don't have any expenses. I don't hire a labor, I don't put load loaders on it, I don't spend money, but I lose revenue. So that kind of compensates a little bit.
This is a,
Would almost be, I mean, you could almost characterize it, the Weyerhaeuser is subsidizing the port with that provision. They're covering more of our fixed.
That's one lost opportunity.
Yeah, complex relationship.
I am ignorant because I don't watch logs coming in and perhaps logs going out. Does Weyerhaeuser ever ship any of the logs off of a port, log storage by truck?
Yes, they do. That's a great question because that's something that we talk with them all the time and we're counting it very diligently. So sometimes you will see that they do container shipments. In fact, I used to handle those containers in WUT when I used to work there, and I used to hate them because they're very heavy containers. When hard to plan a ship when it flows and you gotta put it on the third deck, it's not good for stability. So, because this is very unique here, Pacific Northwest loads log containers. I haven't seen it anywhere else. When I first saw it, I was very surprised. So when they do those log containers, we don't earn money. Our apart from the normal lease that they pay for having them in the port. We do not earn, our longshore doesn't get any labor from that. However, the numbers of it, which we track by our gate records and by the container truck shipments, it's right now, it's very low compared to the cargo that's coming into the port to be loaded on the ship. And we are kind of at the moment okay with that because those containers, they're shipping it to Vietnam and Korea. And those shipping them, anything, this type of cargo, shipping it with the containers is not like cheating on the port because they're losing money. When you ship, instead of a bulk shipment, you use containers, you're losing money. They are having to do that because there's not enough market in Vietnam yet to load a whole bulk cargo ship. So right now they are sending, it's almost like
They're trying to develop a
sample,
relationship.
develop the relationship. And we support that as long as it's not 400 containers a week.
Do they load them in Tacoma? Is that where they?
Yes, sir. In Husky and WUT terminals, we load those containers and that goes to pretty much Japan.
So I was just curious because and now, no, thank you for that
I
information.
want to go back for a second. So with this impact to trade caused by a reckless federal administration, are you saying when you spoke about the tugboats that there are local businesses, small businesses that are currently at risk. Like, is there a possibility that we'll lose tugboats in the South Sound?
Not lose, but their operations, they already got very expensive. So, right, their rates, it's a combination of a lot of things, Commissioner. I wouldn't say it's because of the federal government or it's because of Weyerhaeuser. Those tugboats, it's a trivia information, so I won't spend time much on it, but they used to be uninspected. So the owner of those tugboats, they could leave it at the port for 8 years. And just keep it working, just do the general maintenance, etc. But a few years ago, they went into chapter 13 now, so they are now inspected vessels, which means they're gonna have to get them out of the water into dry dock every 2.5 years and spend a lot of money. So their expenses went up a lot. This is just with the US Coast Guard regulations. So those tugboats are a lot more inspected. They have to have a safety management system, etc. This has nothing to do with the tariffs or the federal government. On top of that, the reduction in vessels with Weyerhaeuser was the most important, effect on it, because all of a sudden he's not doing 10 ships. So to cover all those, they almost tripled their rates to customers. Not to us, we don't deal with tugboat, we don't employ them, they get hired by the shipping company. And, but we had some concerns brought to us by major shipper that's working here, G2 Shipping, because all of a sudden their rates went up. The only solution to this is on the long term, the customers will not like these long rates. Right now, they're liking it because their charterer wants to come to Olympia, which is Suzano. But in the long term, more vessel number is the only solution. We have to increase the vessel numbers. There's no way around it.
This is kind of a germane question, but one of the reasons that the fuel dock has done as poorly as it has, I was told, was because a tug company had actually moved its operations further, like out into Tacoma or whatever. Is that accurate?
It wasn't Tug, it was Dunlap Towing. Dunlap, when that first got installed, Dunlap Towing was over by West Bay Marina. They were still operating over there. They were one of the hopeful customers when they put that in, yeah.
Dunlap Towing,
Yeah, it wasn't a tug company, it was Dunlap Towing.
but they are a barge towing company.
Didn't they own something on West Bay?
Yes, the north side of West Bay
They
Marina.
still own a parcel there.
Okay, thank you.
So those tugboats, they don't get their fuel.
We have mentioned Suzano's warehouse a couple of times here. Do you have an estimate on like what you would expect to see Suzano's ship the port call number in the next year after the warehouses?
I don't think we're gonna have an increase in the number of vessels in Suzano. We're gonna have an increase in the tonnage that they are bringing per vessel. Because they're already coming with partial cargo. They send a vessel from Brazil, it goes around the straits, it goes up to one port in Peru, I think. And then another one up in Central America. And then they come here. So we are the third customer to make the voyage pay for itself. That's one of the strengths of that company. It's very expensive to send a vessel from Brazil to Pacific Northwest, and it's one of the few companies that can get a whole ship and do that voyage. So it's gonna be, right now, each vessel, they're bringing something between 22,000. We expect those numbers to go up slightly. Again, it's not gonna be a huge increase immediately, but it's gonna be an organic growth. Because once the capacity is available, they will sell. And there are other areas that they are sending material to that's flowing right in front of our eyes, being railed all the way from south. We don't have the capacity to handle them, like it's going to Vancouver, BC, it's going to Lewiston, Idaho, and it's being railed all the way from the Gulf. We could handle that cargo when we have capacity and
And will that warehouse actually guarantee the amount of space needed in order to take over that northern?
Just about. If we could bite to everything that are sending to these locations, it would fill about 80% of that second warehouse. If we could get all of them. There are other challenges with those cargos to rail. There are other logistic challenges, but if we could get it, it would fill up the entire warehouse. Then I would come for a third warehouse. We
Don't say that.
The next one is just the same stuff translated to tonnage. Now, tonnage is a funny thing. Again, don't consider it linear from the number of vessels because warehouse ships are like, we lost a lot of tonnage, and that the reason is because of the warehouse ships. Because a paper ship, although it earns a lot more than a log ship for us, and it's our bread and butter in that manner, it's only about 20,000 tons, but each log ship is 50,000 tons. So loss of 10 log ships affect our tonnage greatly. And again, this is one of the metrics that doesn't hurt me money-wise, maybe at the moment, but it's a metric that's followed by everybody, including Army Corps, for just to consider ports for dredging, because if you don't have enough tonnage, they're like, who are you, kind of. So again, these are the tonnages of the major two cargo that we deal with. Financials, again, 2026 year-to-date actual, before depreciation, it's 1.7 million after all the expenses, G&A overhead, expenses meaning operating and maintenance expenses. And after the depreciation, that if we have 6 months depreciation, again, we are net after that, net $851,000. Again, at the end of the year, the number is not going to be like this. It's going to be less. I don't remember our last year's number. We have year to date now. I don't remember the final one. I think it was just over 0, something after depreciation.
It was above it was positive, but
It was positive, marginally positive about. So this is actually the number we initially aim to be after a year of operations, once we get to full cylinders on marine terminal. That's what we want to see, $851,000 after depreciation at the end of the year. Unfortunately, this year, we're not going to be achieving that. And again, the reasons I think I mentioned, it's because of the forward vessels that we did. Now, what's driving that budget beat? Most of it is coming from the vessel numbers, and when you look at the vessel, apologies. When it comes to the vessel numbers, I just want to list a few of the things that we charge. And let me bring your attention to that service and facilities. So when a vessel comes, there are tariff charges that we do, like dockage. So they come, they stay 7 days, there's a tariff rate. For that length of vessel, we charge that. That's the dockage. Then there's wharfage and service and facilities, and these are charged on tonnage. So with the warehouser vessels, we do not charge them service and facilities per vessel. We just have a one set amount that we talked about. That's their service and facilities. And if you look at the general log vessel service and facilities, let's say we moved away from that standard and we started charging them every vessel's service and facilities and made the lease something completely different. Right now, we are doing better on that front when it comes to having a fixed service and facilities.
When times are bad,
Times are bad.
When times are
Exactly.
good, it looks like it's a bargain basement.
Exactly. And to be honest, when I looked at the numbers, again, in a competitive environment, when you look at what an average, what would you charge for service and facilities per ton to a log ship? When you look at those numbers, even the years we do 20 ships or so, that SNF rate is, I'm still fine with the fixed rates. If I charged it per vessel, it would have to be a competitive rate and it wouldn't make that much. So that part of it, we're happy with. So the Waco ships, when they come, so the increases that you see on that service and facilities and storage and wharfage, those are from the paper ships because they don't get, Waco ships don't get charged service and facilities. And handling, that's not for the vessels. Handling is what we call after when a ship leaves, the activity. We never had handling income like this before because we do the Suzano ships and there's workers working every day shipping those trucks out. And the increase on that is associated with that side. On the expense side, the increase is over budget. Those variances that you're going to see, again, outside professional services. In our budget, labor that we hire to work ships, ILW labor, it's in that outside professional services category because they're not our employees. PMA is our outside contractor and we get the employees from them. So more vessel, you're going to see more expenses. Again, you might say, like, what do you mean more vessels? We are having less vessels than other year. What I mean is the first half was more than the projected. And maintenance, we are kind of under budget. We didn't spend a lot of money on maintenance this year. Most of the stuff was, we had to spend some money on the crane to get it ready for pre-sale. We had some issues that was our fault. So we got them repaired. And we had some outside professional services to look into scope certain work for us to see if it's feasible or not. And that's about it. So the net effect is roughly 82 cents of added revenue dollar reached the bottom line. Against it, only $254,000 of added O&M cost. That's all I have.
I'll ask the same thing that Jerry asked of Warren. Could we get a copy of this? Of course, I did electronically.
Yeah, we'll put them on your intranet. I'll ask Karen to.
Great.
I want to take a second before we go to the next division or business line to notice that it's 5:20. I think this has been very valuable. It's very different than how we've had previous budget discussions. It's really like an operational quarterly or semi-annual review. It's like, so if other commissioners nod and tell me they also feel that way, then there's no point in rushing anything. And what I'd like to consult Alex on quickly is, well, everybody, I was thinking of a 6 p.m. end time. Are we thinking that we're going to go through everything and take what time it takes, or should we look at whether the capital project discussion can be moved to be part of next week's, our next meeting, instead of next month's work session? So can we just have a quick conversation about that?
Start, my son is gonna show up at 6 p.m., be dropped off, and I have to leave at that time. So, but I find this incredibly valuable. And I would even make extra time for another meeting if that was necessary, because I think this is really time well spent for all of us.
Sort of like a retreat almost in like.
Just a public
I'm like
retreat.
I'm in like Port 101 right now.
Yeah.
And this is, I can tell we're all learning so much.
Oh, yeah.
I was going to say that having another meeting sooner rather than waiting until our next work session.
Yes.
That would be mine.
Would be preferable.
Okay.
I was
So
just too.
plan to go till 6 and we'll sort of end where we end, and then schedule, I'll work with Missy and we'll schedule something to finish up the conversation.
Yeah, I think we have got a hold on some times for
Yeah.
potential executive sessions. Maybe we could use one of those, not as an executive session, but as another one of these.
I'll work with Alex, but we'll try to get it in the next few weeks where we don't hit. And I wanted to say that now in case someone's waiting to do capital budget and has a family.
It's crushed. He's not able to share today.
Okay, thank you. So we're ready to move on from options presentation. Thank you.
So Damien, if the handshake, if you can do 15, I can do 15 minutes and. Yeah, I'll work it. There you go.
And then you get 5.
That's all. This is great.
Good afternoon, commissioners. I'm Damien Egan. I'm the Harbor Senior Manager, and we're gonna go over Q1, Q2 for Swantown. Mine's a little bit different because Swantown with the recreational boating is such a seasonal type of a thing. I did mine a little different last year, so it's not just a revenue. It's more of a story of projections based on previous years because I like to see our time kind of starts in June. So that's when our busy season starts and that's when the revenue really starts to kick in. So trend lines is kind of be my thing tonight. So Swantown is the largest staff wise business unit. We have almost a little more than a quarter of the port there. 16 full-time employees plus seasonal staff. We hire a seasonal fuel dock attendant for our busy time of the year. I have myself, 4 in the boatyard, 5 at the marina and 6 maintenance staff. So we just hired our seasonal fuel dock attendant back in May. So we are 3 departments. 020 is Swantown Marina, 022 is the Boatworks, and 024 is the fuel dock. We get our revenue from permanent moorage, transient moorage, fuel sales, haul outs, launch fees, liveaboard fees, dry boat storage, our travel lift, and then gas and diesel fuel sales. So overall, we are up about 500,000 projected revenue for the first half of the year. Our operation expenses have gone up a little bit, and I'll explain that a little later because this is looking at all 3 business units as a whole. Almost $3 million before depreciation. So they are all doing pretty well. This is my occupancy over the last 3 years. Anything above 32 feet is sitting about 95% plus, which is trending right the same as it has been the last 5-6 years. My under 32, my 28 foot and less, they stay in about a 50% occupancy range. And then summertime, they go up to about 60-65%. Then they drop back down to 50.
Of your slips?
Oh, my slips. Yeah. Interesting. And this is just permanent moorage. This is not including transient moorage.
I'm sorry. Is there a trend over time that is,
it's
boats are getting bigger, the smaller slips are being less used?
Smaller slips are being less used because when the marina was first built, there's 250 slips that are in that like 30 foot and less range. And those are the ones that are about 50% occupied because typically if it can go on a trailer, people will put it on a trailer and not leave it in the saltwater. So you don't see a lot of the big boats come out for a long period of time, just the small ones.
To say that's an interesting data point because I would have just made an assumption that in the busy season or in the summer that the occupancy rate of those would be as much as all the others slips, but
it's not. And the interesting part of that is the green line on there is our storage. That includes our dry storage. People will take their boat from our dry storage, put them in the water in the small flips and leave their trailer and pay for the storage for their trailer because they don't have a spot to put it either. So our dry storage is always full, whether it's a boat or a trailer or whatever. So it is very interesting. And people, once they know that they may not get it back, they'll just keep it and say, we'll keep paying for it. Boat will be in the water. So this is the marina in general. Our revenue is up about 300,000 over last year for the first half of the year. Income before depreciation is about 200. A little bit higher operations expenses and a little bit less maintenance expenses. Operations, one of the things that's going to be shown on Boatworks and the marina is our derelict vessels. We've spent about 140,000 so far this year on derelict vessels, which has been a pretty good increase over the last few years, but that is reimbursed back to the port through DNR, through their derelict vessel program. So but we've gotten rid of a lot of them in the first half of the year. So we're spending a little bit more than we wanted to on that. We're just waiting for the reimbursement to show up. This is our fuel facility, diesel sales on the left, gas sales on the right, kind of trending close to the same. Diesel's down just a little bit. Gas compared to last year, even at $1.50 more per gallon, we sold 60 less gallons this year than we did last year. And so people are still buying fuel. Diesel, on the other hand, we're down about 10%. It's gone up about $1.50, but diesel highly outweighs our gas sales. We've sold about 17,000 gallons of gas this year and about 27,000 gallons of diesel. So larger boats are usually diesel. So we kind of see that trend going that way. Our fuel facility, we front loaded some maintenance. So our operations expenses are a little bit higher. So it's showing the revenue as negative right now before depreciation. We had some compliance stuff that we had to take care of for some inspections. We did those all in the first part of the year. We replaced a bunch of our hoses and stuff like that. That was kind of a higher dollar amount. We do them about every 5 years. So front loaded the maintenance, so we shouldn't have as much expenses going through the summer months. We wanted to make sure everything was safe and effective going that way. Boatworks.
Could you go back
Oh,
there?
sorry.
You've something, your slides are smaller and there's a lot packed in. It's
I'm sorry.
make me dizzy.
Sorry.
I was trying to understand. Administration comes from 62, wait, no. Income before depreciation. So -3. In what units is this?
Oh, I'm sorry. This is in thousands.
Okay, and then an 11 for 2024 and then 0.33.
Yeah. So this year income before depreciation is down, like I said, because we front loaded some of the maintenance expenses.
And that's built into income? Oh, yeah.
So before depreciation. Yeah,
Income.
net income.
Net income.
Yeah, net
Okay.
income.
Thank you.
Sorry. This is our Boatworks. Travel lift operations for the year, all the way on the right is 2026. We go through a rolling trend of about every 5 years where it's all large boats. And this is that year. So we have less haul outs and kind of less launches because we have a lot more larger boats and we don't have the space in the yard for the larger vessels. We're kind of set in that 40 to 45 foot range. We have a few more spaces. The 50 foot plus, that seems to be the trend of this year. And it happens about every 5 years that way. So on that, our revenue's gone up over last year because of that increase in the larger vessels, because the larger the vessel, the more it costs for the haul out and the more it costs for the lay time. So even though our numbers are down a little bit, we're seeing more revenue coming from that part of it. So far this year, we're keeping consistent with our seasonal trends. Occupancy is strong in the large slip sizes. The fuel facility is pretty consistent with last year with gas, about 10% increase in diesel. Our occupancy in the boatyard is down a little bit, but we've heard from quite a few of repeat customers that live up north that liked coming down here. They just didn't want to spend the fuel to drive the boat down and then drive the car down back and forth throughout the week working on it. So they've decided to pay a little bit higher price up north and stay up there and work. Once again, I said our operating expenses increased due to a lot of derelict vessels. One thing that's changed over the last year is I had a whole bunch of my staff out last year. I had 3 gentlemen that had babies all at once. We usually do all of our derelict vessels in-house. We ended up contracting them out to state contractors last year, and it cost us about 3 times as much to get rid of them that way, but DNR does reimburse that. So I hope to go back to doing them in-house this year. So for our rates and fees, when we're setting up the marina and the boatyard, we're calculating Puget Sound marinas. 80% of our tenants are Thurston County residents. So we look at this here and kind of calculate from there. Our boatyard rates are the same way. There's only one other boatyard in Thurston County, and that's Zittles Marina. Their facility is much smaller. They have about 9 spaces. We have 63. So our current rates do not include capital infrastructure project replacements in the calculation. That's a hard one to come up with. Eventually, we're going to do some dock replacement and repairs. Our only real source of income in the marina is mortgage. So that's where that second piece of development comes in, is how does that upland develop back into the infrastructure? In the future, I'm hoping to consider kind of the CPI as one of our drivers for our increases. So we don't have to do large increases all at once, kind of look at what it is and over the year, and then looking at end of life replacement for equipment and infrastructure. Our travel lift, this is the second one the port's owned since the boatyard got opened. The first one was about 15 years old when they decided to replace it. We're at year 10 on ours. We're doing a little bit extra maintenance to it this year. Cause that's one of those machines that if it goes down, you don't just go buy one somewhere. You wait a couple months for it to be built. So
Damien, I'd like to give you an assignment and I want Alex to validate it and our Director of Operations and everybody. Whether this is in the Burke study or elsewhere, I would like to understand the demographics of our tenants. Your factoid that there are Thurston County tenant residents is what sparked that for me. I think people have an idea that it's like lifestyles of the rich and famous. And I'd like to understand, because when you're bringing up that our current rates aren't covering capital infrastructure project replacements, I'd like to understand if this is serving just the regular person in Thurston County for whom voting has been part of their life and want to maintain that ability. I want to be able to help tell constituents who are worried about any possible transfer to subsidize rich and famous. I want to be able to make it clear, like, no, I support the marina because it's part of what makes us a thriving place. And by the way, the average income of the people who are our tenants is the same as across the whole county.
and our demographics for that 80% is based on their mailing address in our marina system. So
That's why this is a homework assignment to make sure somewhere in our studies and all the stuff that we pay for, we are figuring this out.
okay.
Or in your operations. Warren, will you make sure this happens? Please.
Know your customer.
I appreciate knowing 80%.
Yeah,
For Thurston
in Thurston
County.
County.
That's far more than what I would.
Yeah, when we first looked at that number, it surprised me because we see vessels that are named and they have their city and state on them, but it's not always true. That's where they are. They live here, they bought it from another state or they moved it here or whatever. So,
For people that are getting to the Puget Sound from somewhere south of Thurston County, this is the first chance they get. I would have thought it would be higher than 20% outside the county.
yeah. We have a lot of long-term tenants. It's amazing. Anything over kind of 45 feet has a wait list that's long in all of Puget Sound. So it's hard to find a large slip.
And does that mean you're going to be recommending revising our slips sizes?
If we ever do dredging or dock restructuring or anything like that, reducing the number of under 28 foot and increasing the number of larger slips there's a demand for larger slips in all of Puget Sound.
And yet making sure we have really good access for the smaller boats to come in, put trailer and other trailers.
That's exactly right. Yeah. So our operational health, marina occupancy is our key. And as seen in the years past, it's staying right on trend. Our boatworks, travel lift and yard occupancy, operations are dependent on that travel lift going every day. That's why we're putting a little bit more focus on that maintenance on that this year, and having the space to place vessels. We ran into a problem last year with derelict vessels getting hauled out of the water and taking up a lot of space in that boatyard. So we typically, when we demolish them ourselves or deconstruct them, we wait till the summer season just for our stormwater quality and stuff. So we do it only during the summer. We will not do a deconstruction during the rainy season. The other thing for the fuel dock, being available 7 days a week. The marina and the fuel dock are the only port operations besides the marine terminal when they have a ship in that are 7 days a week. So we're there when the people need us.
A couple of comments on that. One, or first a question, when you say that we're reimbursed by DNR for the costs of derelict vessel deconstruction and whatnot, do they just reimburse our costs, or is that?
So there's kind of there's two ways that we acquire derelict vessels. There's two different RCWs. One is abandonment and one is through non-payment. Abandonment, they will cover all costs to deconstruct, administration costs. They will cover 3 months of moorage or storage, because the process through abandonment, you have a 45-day process of just kind of getting that ownership of it. And then they have an appeal period that they can do to regain ownership of it. Once that's all said and done and we actually have possession of the vessel and it's ours, we can recycle it or do whatever we wish with. For ours, we typically put them up for auction. Whatever's owed is what's owed, and that's what the auction starts at. We've sold one since I've been here. And actually the guy took it right out into the boatyard and put a bunch of money into it, and he's getting ready to put it back in the water. But most of the ones that we acquire are what you see kind of sitting over here in the West Bay area. So it's getting that partnership and working with those to get them out of the water.
So my comment there is that I think that's a real service that we're providing to the community, not just here, but all of the Sound. And it's a real environmental benefit to get those abandoned vessels out of the water and disposed of properly. So it may not be a moneymaker, but I think it's a service that is really valuable for us to provide.
It really is. We average about 10 a year. And I probably turn away as many as we do. So, because we don't have the space for them. They have to take them to a different facility.
That would be something to be interested.
That's one of the reasons why we have talked about expanding the boatyard. To be able to have that space to get them out of the water so that we can either contract them out with DNR or do them ourselves.
What about that gravel lot for now?
We can't place them on gravel. They have to be on asphalt.
For ecology.
It's part of the reason when we take them out and put them on stands, the asphalt keeps the stands from moving. Having them on gravel, my staff would have to go over there probably daily to adjust tension on the stand. So we don't want to set them on gravel. We want to have them on asphalt. So, yeah, way back when they did demolish vessels over in that gravel lot across from the boatyard, and then it was like, yeah, no more.
And there's not extra gravel, extra paved land on the marine terminal where the harbor
Please tell.
building is.
We wouldn't be able to get them over there with our travel lift. It can't go down the road. It's too tall.
I mean, that is part of, the budget that you all passed last year was the boatyard expansion. And part of that is also creating additional space and additional ability to take on more derelict vessels.
Yeah.
So are we on, is that happening? I'm sorry.
It's
Well,
part
I
of.
would be happy to share with you though at the end of this presentation.
Non-derelict vessels is really just performing a public service because we
Yeah.
get reimbursed for costs, but we don't.
No,
I think I would just say, I think it's a great service that we're providing, and
for our staff, I've done it for the last 5 years with the derelict vessels, and we've increased how many we've done every year since I've been here. On average for a, let's say 30-foot sailboat or powerboat or whatever, our cost that we get reimbursed from DNR is about $5,000. That's what it costs us to do it. That's what it costs us to get rid of it. And that's what they reimburse. I contracted a dozen of them out last year, and they are between $15,000 and $20,000 for a contract to do it. So if we do them in-house, it's much better for us. It's much better for that program, the derelict vessel program, because they have X amount of money for their biennium. So if we're spending less to get rid of them and they're getting them out of the water, and we can also do an ILA with Olympia Parks, Olympia Police, Thurston County, and we can demolish their vessels for them. So we could be the facility that.
You could have an internship from the SPS.
Yes, that would be great.
I did talk to the woman who owns Boston Harbor Marina, and she was really irked by sometimes derelict vessels being docked in her marina.
They come to Percival Landing, they come to the Port Plaza.
And sometimes the Coast Guard dumps them on people.
So if that's one of the rules of the maritime is if you have a vessel in distress or abandoned or drifting, you are required to take it to the closest safe haven. So if it's in Bud Inlet out here, the closest safe haven is always the Plaza Dock. No matter where you're at, everybody brings it to the Plaza Dock, just because we will tow it out of there and get it out of the way.
I just have one more question. We can do it cheaper, and we're the most competent government entity at the local level to do it, obviously, with the derelict.
We have the facilities,
On that note, there's a marina that Olympia operates on West Bay, on Bud Bay. Or is it a private?
They're private.
those are all private.
There's no marina that the city is.
They have a guest dock,
Stocks.
Guest dock.
Percival Landing.
So is there any thing emerging with that original conversation about Percival Landing is Olympia, I thought, was interested at some point in the port taking over that operation of the guest dock. Have there been continued conversations about that?
The city's about to embark on a plan to sort of upgrade and improve Percival Landing. And I think we have asked and they want us to be part of the conversation or to see if maybe we take over the docks as part of it.
Along those lines, do we know what happened about West Bay?
No, I don't. I know it's still managed by the same person, but I don't know who bought it.
I have a question on the 7 days a week comment. Making me think how I think a lot of times, I don't know if I talked to you or someone else, but like there's a discussion whether we should even have somebody provide fuel service during winter months.
Mhm.
Is there's gotta be some kind of philosophy of we're probably losing money by eating it 7 days a week,
So
12 months a year. So what would you describe your philosophy is as far as trying to create better value savings? Because I know there's a service we're offering. It's also costing.
that's a great question, because the last 2 winters, we did not have the fuel dock open on Saturday and Sunday. We had it by appointment. So if we had a club coming in, they said, hey, we all need fuel, we can meet them down there. I still have operations staff that's on site, but only one of them on Saturday and Sunday. They switch, one Saturday, one Sunday. So we would close down the marina office for the weekend from November to February. And then we had just an operations staff in case a pipe broke or something that they could call maintenance during the day. And then we only had fuel available by appointment. And it changed. I think we changed maybe 100 gallons in sales over a month's period. So
Is there any,
What's your philosophy?
is there any, do you foresee, is there any reason to contemplate staffing it maybe a couple days a week? If there's a potential huge savings and
yes, there is, it's consideration. We're the only fuel dock in the South Sound right now. The closest one besides ours is Gerald Cove. And that's quite a ways away on the north side of Harstein Island. Because Boston Harbor's fuel dock is down right now. It's been down since last April. And they were one of the only other ones that had fuel in the South Sound. So there's a part of it it's the only place to get it, and the part of it that's operational needs. I wanted to look at that because originally when it was designed, it was supposed to have 1.5 people, which I don't know how you get a half, but hours wise, 1.5 people, because it was 7 days a week. And we've ran it with 1, except for during the summer months. We have a part-time staff that comes on during the summer months. And during the summer, we also have it open during the lunch hour and all that. So because we do have 2 staff that are available to run it.
But isn't there another consideration? Isn't it the case that if people had no fuel dock to go to, ran out of fuel, they'd be doing it by hand?
Yes, yeah, and that's
More pollution, more.
Potential.
A lot more leakage and spillage happens.
potential for it, yes, potential for it for sure. We don't allow any fueling out of cans in the marina at all. They have to go to the fuel dock, and that's the consideration is, if they're dripping while they're pouring it in their tank, it's going into the water, and that's what we don't want. So most publicly owned fuel docks are manned and only can get fuel when it's open.
So the reason there's not self-serve is also because of the concern about sure.
Yep, that's why we're only open when we're manned. There's no card lock or anything like that, because if there's a spill, our staff is going to be the ones responding to it. So our staff are there and they're trained for it.
and then just I've heard lots of numbers. When will the docks need to be moved?
So concrete docks have a 50-year life expectancy. That's by the manufacturer. Bellingham Marine built those. They were installed in 1983. all except for DEF dock, which were installed in 2005. So 3 sections of our dock are 20 years old, 21 years old, and the rest of them are about 43, 44 years old. So within the next 10 years, potentially 9 of the docks have to be replaced.
In by 2033.
Yeah, somewhere in there. That's the life expectancy of them. They're in decent shape. They had a bunch of work done to them a few years ago, and they were actually better than projected, is what I had read in the report. So it's a future consideration to say that we will have to put some maintenance into them or replacement at some point in time.
I've been in lots of marinas where they're in a lot worse shape.
Looking at Fiddlehead.
I was wondering if we could extend that by quite a bit.
Yeah, it's possible.
One of the considerations for us with the cleanup project, if there's any dredging that has to happen, then they'll have to be removed. And they're gonna get a really good inspection when that happens, when they're taken apart to move out. And that's a good time to replace pilings and stuff like that, because DEF dock is our newest dock section that, like I said, it was put in 2005. It has steel pilings instead of the creosote ones, and it's all newer dock sections. So those are only 20. If we did a reformat of the entire marina, those would stay because they have 30 more years left on them. So they're for sure, like, we would reformat something around them and go put those back how they were.
To reinforce the cleanup aspect of it, move the docks to do the dredging. It does give us a chance to remove all creosote pilings, which is great, get those out of the environment. And it also creates an opportunity to get some of it paid for by the grant funding that funds the cleanup. So we have to remove the docks to get the dredging. That's part of the cleanup cost. And so it does reduce the cost, at least for us, of replacing the docks. And it is a perfect time to look at reconfiguring the docks to put in larger slips.
We will talk,
No, I have heard that rates have been increased, bridge rates have been increased in order to start paying into a capital improvement account that would to do dock replacement.
So
Is that accurate?
mortgage rates have been increased to bring us up to more what the community standard was. In the past, well before me, well before the gentleman before me, it was, let's look at every marina in Thurston County and say, we're right in the middle. That's as high as they would go. It's like, if everybody's here, we're gonna be right here. So we looked at everybody's rates, and part of the problem with that I have with our rate increases is every other marina increases their rates in April. We do ours in January because of our budgeting. So everybody else waits till we increase ours, then they increase theirs. So they know what we increase, and they go, we can go exactly what Swantown did and match them. So
Bad guys first.
yeah, the bad guys first. That's a good point. So I took into consideration everybody's rates in the South Sound for our last increase, and we did a heavy increase in 2025. Now we're aligned with where everybody else is, that we can actually start putting some money into some other options, because we have all of our infrastructure is from the 80s. Buildings.
to build on Commissioner Ansel's question, it seems like there may have been some disconnect between how we communicated and did the change management around the rates. I know as a commissioner, that was just part of the last budget package, like, oh, and by the way, this is what we're gonna do. So I do welcome that we're having this conversation earlier. What I'm hearing from you is that since we just did a big lift in 2025, we don't have to anticipate that. But can you give us more of a briefing about like, what are the concerns, like this thing about mass storage, or what are we hearing from our tenants, and how are we communicating back to them?
So the main thing that we tried to communicate last year was our focus was going to be on some deferred maintenance items, because that's been kind of the story of the
Okay,
marina.
so deferred.
So it was deferred maintenance, not replacement. That was kind of what we focused on this year. We've always kind of been like, rates are going up. Here's the capital project. Here's what projects we're going to work on. We want to get to the core of like our actual facilities, because the property of the marina is in the shape it's in, and we have some facilities that are having some infrastructure issues. That was going to be my big push this year. We spent a lot of money on one of the buildings last year because we have 40-year-old ductile iron pipe in the walls. They had to replace a bunch of piping in there. So we were thinking that a lot of this first initial larger increase was going to help with that kind of infrastructure. So we don't have huge expenses in the future. We're kind of chipping away at them right now. like I said, we haven't, the marina has not accounted for dock replacement in its rates, since it opened. So it's,
I was gonna just make a point, since I've heard multiple times, if there's not an actual account money's going into, we should not be preferring it like price increases as going towards future replacement. So it's,
Well,
So there-
deferred maintenance, there may have been just it is infrastructure, but it's deferred maintenance versus replacement. Right.
I have one more question about Marina, and this is something that I've heard expressed regarding the hotel on the.
Mhm.
And that's that it would impact and possibly lessen the amount of dry storage.
it would be relocated.
And you said that dry storage is always full,
Mhm.
and does that need to be increased?
That's a great question. It's full. We don't have as long of a wait list for dry storage as we do for in-water slips. So yes, it could be increased percentage wise, but that's a hard one, because part of the thing when people move out of the dry storage or out of a slip, we have our wait list, and the office calls through that wait list, and people will pass because they're not ready to move. They have other arrangements or whatever, or they'll take it right away. So that's kind of a catch-22 on that one. Do we increase the size of dry storage? I don't know. That would have to be,
Revenue per square foot is fairly minimal
yeah.
increase that you would get. So the opportunities are, for example, the Site D, the Italian hospitality approach, for hotel in terms of the price per square foot is significant. So if we can leverage that based upon what the Port Peninsula Master Plan comes up, we have then other areas reserved for the circus. What's the value of that for, some dry storage we might get, things along those lines. So.
I think you're hearing this, the tenants at the airport and at the marina are also, of course, our constituents. They are where operations really touch the community. So I wonder whether it would be appropriate for us as commissioners just to be on the general mailing list, so we know when there's how communications are going out. Alex, if you think about that, if you think that's too operational, but it's
Just
sort
for
of an engagement.
situational awareness.
Yeah, just for situational awareness.
It's an easy fix.
General mailing list of what the port sends out. to-
Yeah, the emailing list is what I mean.
Some of it might get, a little mundane, but if you don't mind a little extra up in your mailbox, but it would, you'd see what our tenants are saying from us.
I think that would be helpful.
I'll follow up a little bit on your question with regard to the demographics, and we'll have to table the airport one, as well, for another time. But I would like to offer just a couple of thoughts. One is with regard to demographics. Anecdotally, and I think this is the case in Marina, my own experience on airports, is that if a family is fortunate enough to have discretionary dollars, it's a question on where do you spend those discretionary dollars? Some will spend them on lift tickets. Some will spend them on a travel trailer or an RV. Some will spend them on a boat. Some will spend them on an airplane. But it's not like they're spending that discretionary money everywhere. And essentially, when you look at the makeup of your typical airport tenant, it's your everyday person in your neighborhood that has, and the same thing with the marina is it's not people.
Their passion.
It's famous, and that's the information if we could easily, try to. It's just that this is where they choose to spend their discretionary dollars as opposed to the lift tickets or an RV or something along those lines. And then we as a port can accommodate those through unique, resources that we provide as either an airport or a marina that you wouldn't see otherwise. So that's one thought. The other thought is that where my operations had, I look at all across the business units, and this may surprise you, and I don't want to put you on the spot to what your answer would be. Is I look at what is the single most important critical failure in terms of what would hurt revenue the greatest if it went down. The marine terminal, the airport, on town. What would it be? Travel.
Travel.
Gravel lift. That's the single piece of equipment that generates revenue more than any other piece of equipment that we have at the pool. Every other piece of equipment we have a replacement for, or an alternative approach.
Yeah.
You take our travel lift out of operation and we shut down Boat Works tomorrow. So when you ask me where an operations at, what do I lose sleep over at night? Is Zach gonna be able to operate the Boat Works tomorrow? That's what I think about, because that will have a bigger impact on the bottom line immediately.
When was it bought and
2015.
We got 11 years on it.
And we've got motor replacement coming.
Yeah, it's coming up this winter.
Keep it Going
Yeah.
for as long as we can, but in the next 10 years, we budget figure out how to pay for it.
Is it
Redoing tires, we're redoing hydraulics and
a fuel motor?
It's a diesel, yeah, it's a John Deere diesel engine.
Are there options to replace it with an electric motor?
There's prototypes out there right now. That is one of the, Marine Travel Lift, has a prototype out. I'm trying to remember where it's at though. They had one out. I read about it about 6 months ago. There was a prototype that went out.
I'll just say, when we're replacing motors, I'd love to just make sure that we're doing an analysis of, can we get off of fossil fuel over time?
I think the travel lift was included in the fleet decarbonization report. So it was one of the items they looked at.
but that answer may surprise you, but that's the one I think about. It's like the critical path in terms of the revenue impact on operations.
Should we invest in some sort of safety precaution?
That one's an interesting one because it's a very specific machine. My staff does a really good job of maintaining it. And that's one of the best things they can do. I came from a logging background and it was like a yarder machine to me. That's one of those machines that if you want a new one, you put 50% down and you wait till it's built. So they don't just keep them on the shelf somewhere. You can't go pick it up. That was purpose built for our gears. So if we have to replace it someday, it will be built to our specifications. It will be brought here and the old one will be used to build the new one. That happened before. That's what they did before. Actually traded in our old one and it went to somewhere in Africa, I think.
As we wrap up, just a few things. One, I want to acknowledge what belt are you now, Fisher?
Advanced red belt.
We have an advanced red belt has joined us at the work. Hanson, I want to go to Commissioner Montana. If you had any final words as we wrap this meeting.
Thank you, Commissioner. I just wanted to reiterate that we do need to share this presentation, not just on the internet, but with the public as well, please.
Absolutely. Put it on the website.
And I just want to take a second to thank Warren Hendrickson for being in this overarching operational role. It's a role that there was a point in time that I thought was redundant in our port, and it is like the travel lift. It is an essential to keep going kind of role. And I just want to thank you for stepping in right now to help run the airport.
My pleasure. A little personal note, 4 years ago, Saturday was my first day at the port to be the airport guy. So it's a little bit of a back to the future moment for me. And so, which I'm thrilled to have. So thank you for it.
Hey,
I would like to thank all of the staff and also the executive director, because this has been really, really insightful. I've learned a lot.
Yay.
Thank you, thank you.
I'll echo that, and thanks for giving us your time even when you didn't get to go.
Yes, exactly.
No problem about that, James.
yeah, and it's 100% Alex. I was like, the budget again? And she said, well, I think there's context we could share. So Director Smith, well done. Thank you so much. And we are adjourned.
All right, but are you ready for some?
And